My name is Sven S.moved. I am an old Swede. I worked for the Swedish State Railroads for 21 years. That's why I have this uniform. That's my Swedish uniform. And I came over 1983. Now, as retired, I am a volunteer for this railroad museum in St. Paul. And this museum is all run by volunteers. And let's have a look around here. We have lots of kids here. Twice a month we have something called Train for Toots, where we have small kids like this in and we show them some videos of some books, train books we read, and then they can do painting or whatever, and then they get snacks every first and third Wednesday of the month. A fairly new addition to this museum is this G-scale layout, and Jeff here is one of the fellows that took initiative to this and built it up. And tell us a little about how it came to be.
Okay, thank you, Sven. We try to depict what happened when the railroads first came to Minnesota here. And probably in about 1861 is when the trains came. And the southern part of the railroad here is the agriculture of southern Minnesota, and here we depict for the what the railroads did for the farmers and the cattle people, and we got a cattle down here in farm field, and this is what the railroads did, where the farmers would bring all their crops and their fruit and vegetables, and they bring it all to the co-op, and they would collect it all there and then sell it to the city's people. The other end of our railroad here is northern Minnesota, where we have the lumber yards and we have the mountain and the mining. We have ore mine, where the engine is running up and down with the ore to be delivered to the docks. Forest is right there. We got the forest rangers. On the middle of here is a ferry boat. The first engine that came here in 1861 came by barge from La Crosse, and they unloaded it here at Minneapolis. 10 years later, they had, 1 year later, they had 10 miles of track from Minneapolis to St. Paul. That's in northern Minnesota, and in the center we have the city, where all the produce would eventually, and the mining and all the business would come to the city. We're going to take some, if you look in the center there, we have that stone arch bridge. We have 3 arches in our layout. Actually, there's 27 arches there, but we had to take some liberties with space. So we've got 3. And the backdrop there should be Minneapolis, but again, the liberties that we had to take for scenery available. Our backdrop is St. Paul. And at the beginning of the city down there is the station. Anytime anybody wanted to go visit relatives, they'd have to take the train. There wasn't a blacktop road in Minnesota until 1921. So anytime you wanted to go visit family and friends nearby, you'd go by train. We're open here on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 10 to 4, and all of that time we have the trains running.
And what are these scales that we're looking at?
This is G scale, oftentimes referred to as garden railroads. There's a number of people in the Twin Cities here that have outdoor railroads, and we participate in all of their shows. But G scale is probably one of the larger scales. Again, most of it is outdoor railroads by fellows within the Twin Cities.
Now, do you ever have a luncheon here and deliver hot dogs by train?
Well, that's a good idea. No, we have not done that.
Well, there's still time.
At one time, we had talked about putting a luncheon counter over here on the other side, and we were going to serve hot dogs. So, as that goes on, perhaps that'll be a plan.
Wouldn't it be a fun thing for kids to order a hot dog and have it delivered by train?
This is such a fun display for the kids. If you look at the size of it, it's about 2.5 feet, 2 feet off the floor. As we were first building it, we were talking about normally railroads, model railroads are usually 30 inches off the floor. And we said, who is our customer? Our customer that we want to show to is the guests that come in here with children that are probably 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. And they're all about 2.5, 3 foot tall. So that's why we built the layout. It's eye level for them.
Now, you were instrumental in helping build this?
Absolutely. We started 3 years ago, and we started working on Tuesdays, which was the only day that we could work. We had a lot of drills and a lot of sawing and things like that, so we couldn't work when the museum was open. So we would come in Tuesday morning, usually about 9 o'clock, and there'd be anywhere from 6, 7, 8 guys. We'd all get together at 9 o'clock and talk about what we're going to do for the day. And then by 10 o'clock, everybody was head down and working.
Yes, and this is another fellow that's very instrumental here. He works a lot on the layout. Tom Pappas is his name, and it's your sons that comes in from time to time to help out.
I have 2 sons who are also involved with this. One of my sons works for the Union Pacific Railroad, and so he's out today on the road. And my other son is home this evening, but we got started involved with this about 2 years ago. We're building this portion of the layout where the tunnel is. It represents Eagle Mountain. We got involved with that, and since then we just stayed. I enjoy doing scenery, so that's what I do. Yeah, this is our workbench where the magic happens, and I make repurpose a lot of things for scenery. This is packing material that we received in a package.
Oh, I thought it was your lunch.
Oh, well, if I need fiber, this will really work. But yeah, in this case, I'm chopping this up to make ground cover. We did a batch of it last week, and doing more today. So what we're kind of concentrating on now, because we're not going to get any more real estate. The layout is as big as it's going to get, and so now we're concentrating on the finer details, like adding roads and foliage, leaves, grass, people, anything that would make it look more like the real world. That's what we're working on, and that's what we'll continue to work on. They say that the layout is never really done, and so that's our goal, is to make it look as nice as we can.
Thanks, Tom.
I think we can continue out and take a look at the Caboose Rides that Jeff just talked about.
Thank you very much, Shirley.
The station for our Caboose ride, and the Caboose is just coming back here, I see, under the bridge, and they are coming in to unload people from this ride. And on the back of the Caboose you see the brakeman. As they are backing in, he gives order to the engineer, telling him how far it is until the end of the rail and so on, so you can slow down and stop at the correct spot. The brakeman or conductor is a very important person on the train.
Hi there, guys.
CPR was going to start.
Yes, all aboard.
Okay.
That was more of your job, Scott. Sorry. Just take it. Hey there, watch yourself as you jump. All aboard!
Are you okay?
You gotta kick it, Sven.
Oh, okay. What's your name again? Keith. Right now we are on board the cab on the little switch engine we use for our Caboose Rides. And Keith is engineer today, and he can tell us more about the engine, horsepowers, and what all these gadgets are. Do you mind?
Locomotive today is EMD SW 1200. 1200 horsepower V12 engine. It's built in the late 50s. Originally, it ran for the Lake Superior Terminal and Transfer Railroad. It was a joint railroad owned by Great Northern and Northern Pacific. Came to the museum in the late 1980s. It's been with us since.
Wow, you've been here.
And you actually drove engines too, didn't
Yeah,
you?
I did that too in Sweden.
Of course, Swedish engines, they don't have any horsepower.
We have take the powers from above, you know, electric power.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Yeah, you have to listen to the...
Yeah, okay, we're ready to go here.
All right.
on the Swedish Railway?
Okay, as I said, we have 90% electrified rails over in Sweden, so it's mainly electric engines. We have some diesel for switching or going to factories and so on. And mainly the Swedish diesel are weaker than the Americans, but they do a good job anyhow. So I don't know what more I can tell you.
Well, how many trains, how many engines would you say Swedish Railroad had? Like 220?
No, much more than that. I once lived in a railroad station on a line between Stockholm and Uppsala, and only that line for one day, 24 hours, was 185 trains passing. So you had at least to start with that, so maybe thousands of engines.
Sven, what is a torpedo?
A torpedo is an explosive little unit you put on the rail. If you are stopped on the main line for some emergency, you run back and put them down on the rail behind your train, so the next train comes, those explodes, and the engineer knows there's a hinder in front of the
is a working rail yard.
Yeah, it is.
But this track dead ends, doesn't it?
No.
Is this a working?
Yeah, this one goes out on the main track, but we are not allowed to.
That's why we stop here. We don't go any further.
Yeah, you don't want to run into that.
One time, this is the 4-track main here. This is the 4th track.
Is the track in pretty good shape still?
Oh, there.
Oh, there it is, but not here. This isn't being maintained.
This is now an industrial siding.
So does the brakeman run the train?
Or the conductor.
Okay, so the engineer does what the brakeman or the conductor tells him. So he's not the boss of the train.
Functionally, no, but nowadays on the railroads, the engineers, because there's only 2 people crew now.
Well, that, yeah. So back in the old days, what would a full staff be on a train?
Engineer, fireman, conductor, and 1 or 2 brakemen.
Hey Sven,
Yes.
are there a lot of mountains in Sweden that you have to tunnel through?
Yes, there are some mountains up on the border to Norway on the west side of Sweden, not northwest, but we don't have many tunnels except for up on the iron ore line that goes from Kiruna over to Narvik in Norway. Up there are several tunnels. And then actually there are a few down in southern Sweden too, but they are short.
Now, have you learned quite a bit about Minnesota railroad history since you've come here?
I should know more than I do, but I have learned some, yes.
All right. So, who was James J. Hill?
Oh, he was the builder of this great northern imperium. He started the railroad industry in this area, and this roundhouse was one of his maintenance shops for his engines and so on. And he had what is it called now? I'll remember later. He did a great job no, empire building is what I was looking for. He caught one of his trains, the empire builder, went across America, and there's still Amtrak has one of its trains named Empire Building that passes the Twin Cities. He has to concentrate on braking now before we hit the end of the rail, so we don't end up in the turntable pit, you know. So it is not like braking an automobile. You have to estimate how long braking space you need for a train, especially a full loaded heavy train. That can be kilometers before it comes to a full stop. Okay, Pete, thank you very much for taking us.
Not too bad.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Turn. And watch your step as you come on down. There you go. Thank you for riding with us. And watch your step as you come on down. Thank you. There you go. Thank you for riding with us.
Thank you.
No problem. Have a nice day. This is a friction bearing right
Yeah,
here.
this is old-fashioned bearings where there is a pad soaked in oil and where the axle is resting. So that is, when we get out of oil, you can get the hot box, they call it, and it starts a fire. Nowadays they have rule bearings.
Yep. Yeah, roller bearings,
Yeah.
as they're called. Yep.
So
What was that for? This was the old-fashioned way of actually trying to keep the axles from catching fire.
Oh, okay.
However, if they ran out of oil, it still catches fire. So, yeah.
okay, let's take a look inside the caboose. And this is the home of the conductors and brakemen on the longer routes. It was before. Nowadays they don't have any cabooses. They have an electronic device called Fred sitting at the end of the train telling that the train is all there. Freight, whatever Fred means. Yeah. And this caboose was, as I said, a home. Here they had a stove. They have benches to sleep on if they want to. Back here is a work space for the conductor when he keeps track of the cars. That's uncoupled and coupled, so he knew what kind of train he had. And then up here is a tower where one of the brakemen sat and looked out over the train to see if any of the freight had shifted, or if there was something wrong with the train, if it started smoke from one of the axles or something like that. Then he could brake. Here is an emergency brake, and everything is air brakes on trains. It's letting out air there, and the whole train stops, and the engineer wonders what's going on.
Did electric trains have air brakes too?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean...
They have compressors that's running and compress air. Yeah. And here is a refrigerator where they kept their food during the long runs, and the oil tank for the gas. And here I think might be a restroom too.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
At the side of the air brakes there is a manual handbrake here, a parking brake or whatever you want. So Devon, can you show us how it works? And you see it's a heavy chain that pulls brakes onto the wheels now. And there.
And then just to release them, I just push back the way. And
There.
release them.
Nice. So is that only on this car then?
All freight cars have a handbrake. So
But in a normal train, would every car have a handbrake?
yes, and the rule of thumb, well, not rule of thumb, it's stated in the USOR that at least half the train from the back have to be applied before you leave a train. So basically, if you had a 20-car train, 10 of those cars from behind have to have their handbrakes applied before you could leave it alone. USOR is the standard handbook that would have been, read, and it still is read today by railroad employees that allow them to operate on trains. You give them a certificate, and that basically says that you're allowed to run on these, and you know the rules that are needed to be applied while working on these machines.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yes.
Behind me you see the turntable. It's used, this is called a roundhouse, as you see, and the stalls are side by side, and to get the engines in and out of the correct stall you have to use this turntable, so you can turn it pointing at the right stall, but also it's used to turn engines around. If you, especially important in the steam engine era, you wanted to run the steam engine with the cab at the end. So you turn the steam engine around to run the right way. This yellow truck is a truck that can run both on regular routes and on railroads. It has small wheels, railroad wheels. It shoves down and can run on the railroad. So,
Is that what you're driving home today?
yes, I take the rail home. Yes, I will. And behind me here is a Snoop Plow. You know, we sometimes in the winter get some snow in Minnesota, and this is to clear the snow. It's put in front of an engine, and you see the plow where the kids are climbing up, shoves the snow away. And then there are what we call wings. You can unfold at the sides to make the path wider which you plow, those things you see there on hinges. And on top is a little cab where the people that maneuvers the plow is sitting, and the engine is shoving the plow, so they communicate with the engineer how fast to drive and when to stop and so on. Okay, do you have lots of luggage today for the train, so we know how many luggage cars we need? You don't answer me. Oh, she's not real. This is an old signal from a railroad crossing, and as you see it says 2 tracks, so when you come in your car, when you pass one, you have another one to pass too. And that wigwag there is wiggling when the train is coming. Oh, that red thing is a simulator, engine simulator. Inside there is exactly what an engine looks like inside, and then in front we have a TV screen where we show a railroad, so the kids can run the train in there and believe they are running the train. It's fairly popular.
What do you got in your hand there?
This is the material that we made the mountains out of, and the landscape and the scenery all around the track.
How can you lift a piece of concrete so big?
Maybe it's not concrete.
No.
Maybe it's the plastic foam from Menards. Usually it's pink, but this has been painted and then sculptured, and then in the final treatment we take a hot air gun and take the hot air gun to the outside of it, and that gives it the rock appearance. All of our homes, all of the buildings in the city are all made out of the pink foam from Menards. Just been designed and built by the model railroaders to put it together, and the homes look so real.
Well, Sven.
Yes.
We can see the model train through this coach car.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, look at this.
And this is a private car. It was the last owner was a car dealer here in the Twin Cities. He used to take business trips to Detroit and Chicago in it. And small private compartment. He had first we had the saloon out there, and with sofas and so on. And there were buttons on the wall. He could ring for servants to come with a grog. There are people already waiting for the train to take off.
Well, it's my cousin. What do you know? Hi, Mike. How you doing? Good. Who's your little guy with you?
This is Raphael.
Well, hi, Raphael. Welcome to the train. Can you give me a toot-toot?
Can you say toot toot, Raphael? No.
Okay. We'll work on it. It's not too hard.
A bathroom, and here's a shower.
Wow. Should have my smaller camera to get all this stuff. But
And here we come into the kitchen area. And here we had an old-fashioned icebox before refrigerators. So here's a chute from the outside where they dump the ice and cools down whatever is stored in these cabinets here. And that's part of the kitchen furnishing. And here's a little work area with a desk where he could sit and do his calculations.
who was the owner again?
The last owner was a car dealer. He used this for his business trips from Minnesota to Detroit or Chicago.
Oh, so, I mean, an early car owner.
Yeah.
Not one in the 70s.
No. It was decommissioned in the 50s. That was fun. Comfortable. if you see these bogies, it's engine bogies. And you see those units, 2 of them, that's actually electric engines. So the diesel engine runs a generator that generates electricity that goes down to those 2 electric engines, and those are the ones that actually pulls the train. And also you see those two containers here, that's for air, compressed air for the braking system.
So it's really electric motors powered by diesel
Yes,
combustion.
that's why you call them diesel electric engines. It's called a Droovers Coach. This is mainly used out west when they had all those big cattle trains, and the cowboys rode in these cars with the cattle train to take care of the cattle when they unloaded and loaded and so on. So the cowboys lived here. The floor space is open because the cowboys had their bags, their sleeping bag. No, it was not sleeping bags. I don't know what you call it. The blankets, and slept on the floor. They had their gears. In there is a stove to cook food, a restroom, and then they have these. And if they wanted to go in the way that the car ran, they just moved the back over. And here's another section of the same car. But even though these were just cattle people, it's kind of fancy woodworks, and look at the ceiling and so on. So they were riding in class. Okay, I didn't smell any cattle in there. Maybe they were unloaded already. Thank you. The engines even today have a little bell, but on the steam engine it was a big bell. And we gear a lot to the kids. This is a fun little steam engine they can play in and around. And you can come back here. And here they can play engineer. They have all the gears, everything they need. And there should be a fire in the fireplace going. So here they can play and have fun. Okay. And this is just a play car, or parents can sit down and rest here. And when we have our big meetings, we rearrange this for a meeting room. Another of our simulators where it explains how you drive a train.
Engineers see something in the crossing, realizing that the crossing is blocked, who applies the emergency brake. 60 miles per hour, the train slows to about 52 in 9 seconds. Most engineers can vividly recall the details they see during those moments. They can describe what the other's passenger.
Here we have Dan Patch. It's one of the oldest diesel electric engines we had in the area. And if we can go inside, So here you see you have a diesel engine that runs a generator that generates electricity that goes down to the electric engines that runs the locomotive and the train per se. And this is built so you can run it from either end. You don't need to turn it around on the turntable. So here you have the driver's gears, whatever is needed, and the brake. And if we go to the other side, we have exact the same setup, but little easier. Hi, I am Sven, and I will be your engineer today. I'm going to take you on a ride up to Duluth. And here I am, losing the brake and putting on the throttle, and we are speeding up. And yeah, it's fast, right? And there is a station, so now I have to speed down again and put on the brake. And here we are. Welcome to Duluth.
Perfect, Sven. Oh, that was perfect. That was fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is at one time we had a little theme here about the logging railroad, so this is going with that display of the logging chainsaw. And here's a display of China from the different railroads. The Hiawatha train and so on had different China. It was fancy. And here is a picture from the Milwaukee route, that train called Hiawatha. 1935 is when it started to run, and we saw some of the china used in their restaurant car earlier in the display case. Fanny, have you seen Barb yet?
She has gone to get Jack.
Oh, okay.
Well, here's the ticket stand with the gift shop back there. And what does a ticket cost nowadays?
How much do you charge?
Well, adults are on Saturdays $13, and seniors are $11. We charge $11 for children 5 to 15, and $7 for a toddler. A family fare is $38.
And in the Saturday fee is included a run with the Caboose train.
And, you know, some museums just charge by the pound. They just weigh the customers. What do you think about that idea?
I think we make a lot more money.
All right, where are we off to now?
Down here. This is a fancy handiwork of a guy that put it together, and it's said to be in working condition, so you can fire it up and run. And there's old offices, new names on the door, but the same door that was when it was in function. And this picture is an old photograph that was taken 1936, and people coming visiting here are recognizing their grandfathers or fathers, so they put their name on the picture. So that is fun for them to recognize their ancestors. Now we are going into the roundhouse is divided up in 4 bays, as we call them, sections. So we were in Bay D before, now we go into Bay C, which is a shop where we restore material that's been donated to us. And you have to have me with you to go in here. And you can start by going down. This is kind of a living museum. We are a non-profit organization with about 100 to 125 volunteers in all kinds of duties. There are steel workers, there are wood workers, there are engineers, and then there are people that don't know anything and they are just talkers like me. And here is a car that was donated to us. We get donations as the donator can then write them off in their tax returns. And this is a car that was full of mold and stuff. So we have gutted it completely. Going to be rebuilt as a dining car. Up in Osceola, Wisconsin, we run a dinner train during the summer. So 2 years from now, they tell me this will be one of the cars in that train. And here are two switch engines that we are refurbishing. The one there, 3110, we used before in the Caboose Ride, but it needed a little rest and some updating on the engine itself. And this one was donated to us in a very bad shape. So we have taken it apart, taking out the cylinders, and we are now putting back some parts, and then it needs a great paint job. But then it will be again running for us. And sorry for the mess, this is a working area.
Looks great though, looks like people are doing things.
Yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays there are people here working on different objects. Anyhow, I don't know if you heard that. Diesel engines nowadays are called diesel electric engines. That's because a diesel engine runs a generator, it generates electricity that comes down in cables to these engines that sit on the wheel axles. And this is an electric engine. Here is a cogwheel that actually runs a train. And they have this system because the electric engine has more torque and easier to gear up and gear down. If you should have the diesel engines to run the wheels, you had to have a complicated system of those cardans or whatever you call them in England or in America, English. What do you call it? Drive shafts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. And those wrenches are substantial.
Yes, but even more so. You know, to work in an old steam engine shop, you had to be strong, not only to lift the tools, but to work with the tools too. Can you think of working an 8-hour day with tools like this? That gives you muscles.
Wow.
Yeah. And, this is what I call our 30-year project, because it will take at least that long time to have this steam engine back in, if not running shapes, at least display shape, where it looks like it did when it was in active duty. And this one, 2156, by the way, is one that Casey Jones, you have heard about him maybe in the TV series. He used this same engine in the beginning of his shows when he came in on an engine waving from the cab. That was this engine. And yeah, you see. These are just a little fraction of all the parts that goes back into the engine. It's a big puzzle to put it together again. But when one of these days it might be done.
Oh, this is a tremendous room.
For the children especially coming here, I show them this. It's a steam engine. It has a firebox back here. It's a square part all the way back there. And then they have the boiler. It's a round part. And to boil that much water from the fireplace, you have pipes going back and forth inside the water mass to heat it up. The water starts boiling and generates steam. The steam goes up into a steam dome. It's on top of the boiler there. And in the steam dome is the, you can call accelerator or whatever. So the engineer standing back here, he can regulate how much steam he lets out to the two cylinders, they are there. And from the cylinders, the steam is then moving the drive shafts and the wheels. And we can look at this little engine. The steam comes down under high pressure here to those two cylinders, and between them are an intricate valve system. So the steam is shoved between the two cylinders and then pushes the drive rods and runs away. Oh, I'm running it backwards. There. So that's how a steam engine works.
Excellent.
In Sweden, we still have them in what we call mothballs, because Sweden has electric railroads, you know, and they are so afraid if the enemy comes and cut all the electricity, they can't run the rails, so they have this old steam engine in working shape just to take out of the mothballs. So there you can see when they test run them from time to time, a steam engine even today out running. Out there we have a couple of cars too. You maybe see a grayish car on the second track from here. That's what we call the Rock car. It was from Rock Island Line, and it has tables and chairs in it. So that one is rented for kids' birthday parties and stuff like that. So they enjoy that. Okay, that's our tour for today. If you want to visit the Minnesota Transportation Museum, the Jackson Street Roundhouse, you are welcome every Wednesday and every Saturday between 10 and 4 o'clock in the day. And on the first and third Wednesday, we have special activities for kids starting at 10:30. Farewell.